Good greet Benangs. I am Luna Sizemore. You know where you don't know me from. Maude's family tree. Anyway, I am here tonight as a mere exploiter of days gone by. Here is an example of what the Maude cast initially may have looked like, without all the joy and nonsense in between. A raw, unfiltered look at pure content. This special episode will gather all the intel on Maude Flanders' season 2 Simpsons appearances. Sit back, and for the love of all that is good in Christ, enjoy.
So, shall we move now seamlessly into the main part of this show?
The Simpsons Season 2 Episode 6, Dead Pudding Society, written by Jeff Martin, directed by Rich Moore, aired November 15, 1990.
We see Maude come into the room, and she gives some sandwiches on a little tray to Ned and Homer, and and Ned says, "There's my little popcorn gal. Club sandwiches, ain't she wonderful? Yeah, yeah."
Yeah, and she says something to the rhythm of, "I brought you some sandwiches."
Oh yeah, okay.
That's her first line.
That's the very first line that she says in the whole show. "I brought you some sandwiches."
I thought you were hungry, so I made some sandwiches. Something, a variety of that sentence.
Well, she did say that. I should have written that down, to be honest. That's probably more pertinent than what Ned responded.
Yeah, it's kind of assumed would be a given.
that Maude's very first line in the show would be recorded by her.
Yeah.
Well, as it stands, we're somewhat unclear as what her first line was, but it's along the lines of her making some little triangular club sandwiches.
I think you boys were hungry, so I whipped up some club sandwiches.
And that's nice of her, and that tells us a lot already about considerate, and she makes a darn fine club sandwich. It wasn't just a piece of ham slapped between two pieces of bread, was it?
No, she'd really tried. There was little sticks in the sandwiches.
The little sticks that you put in the club sandwiches, yeah.
But the general goal here is to make her look better and more considerate than Marge, is the whole point of her being in this episode.
Yeah, because Homer loses it because he thinks that Ned's kind of rubbing his face in the fact that Ned's better than him. Is that right?
Yeah. The next time she's referenced is just after she leaves, and he says, "Your wife's butt is higher than my wife's butt." So that is the second thing we learn. She is objectified.
Ooh. By Homer.
Yes, that starts that storyline off that will be continued throughout her existence.
It's a trope, isn't it, that Homer consistently is lecherous over Maude Flanders.
Yes. Maude A.
Maude A. Your wife's butt is higher than my wife's butt. You make me sick.
Yes.
Next time we see them in a four-poster bed. That's Ned and Maude. It's the middle of the night. And this is what you talked about earlier. Maude says, "Ned, you're tossing. What's the matter?" And then Maude lies there essentially motionless, just occasionally blinking, while Ned laments about how he has made Homer feel bad by rubbing his nose in it and how he became a snarling beast.
Yes, and then Maude suggests, well, I don't know if this is the joke for us, but I don't know if what the context is. She says, "Maybe I'm not the one you should be talking to." So then he calls Reverend Lovejoy at like 4 a.m. or whatever it is. So the joke is obviously he was supposed to talk to Homer, but I don't know if Maude knows that. I don't know if Maude was suggesting to talk to Homer or to Reverend Lovejoy.
It's a funny joke. It's weird because it's obvious like he's not the person to speak to. You should go speak to Homer, but he instantly picks up the speed dial at 4 a.m., which he has Lovejoy on both home and work on his speed dial, and he doesn't hesitate to call Reverend Lovejoy at 4 a.m.
Reverend Lovejoy's response is something along the lines of maybe he stepped on a piece of Lego. So it's already established this is something that happens too much for the Reverend.
Ned doesn't hesitate to call the Reverend. But how about Maude here? This is just an example, like you said earlier, of her being very supportive of Ned.
Very generic at this point.
There's not a lot to her, but she's very calm. She blinks and then she says, "Come on, Ned, you know the right thing to do." And then Ned does something completely different. But she doesn't respond in hint to that. She doesn't say, Ned, I clearly meant Homer.
Yeah, no, I think she meant Reverend Lovejoy. That's what I'm going to...
Also, they both back up this idea that calling Reverend Lovejoy at 4 a.m. is a good idea. So Maude's maybe not any more sensible in this area than Ned is.
Maybe. I'm just assuming that, again, with the home dial situation, that she's got to be used to this happening as well. So it can't have come as much of a surprise.
Yeah. We don't know much about her relationship with the church and everything yet. Maybe we'll have to do quite a lot to find out stuff. But if we move on to the next clip there, so then, Ned and Homer are in the garden arguing, and they're deciding to make some kind of bet to see who's better. And during this one, Ned suggests that it should be a batch of your wife's delicious homemade blueberry muffins against one of my wife's homemade wind chimes. But Homer's not buying that. What do we know about wind chimes?
I didn't know that was... I've missed that in the 30 years that I've been watching this program, that she makes wind chimes. So there's something to put on the list straight away.
Is that one of the two things that you learned?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And to be perfectly honest, I've kind of forgot what the other one was.
I'm sure it'll come back later. What was how do we ever see these wind chimes anywhere? Because we got to keep our eyes open for wind chimes in the Flanders house, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that's it. I think that's it.
Well, I'm really hoping it wasn't just a throwaway line by the writers of the show. That would be disappointing. We'll dig deeper into this wind chime scenario and work out a little bit more about what they might look like.
Anyway.
So that's not the end. In fact, that's really just the beginning of the plot of the show. Now, the next time we see Maude and the family, the game is on. They're at the mini golf place. Maude, Ned, Rod and Todd are holding hands in a circle, and they're praying, and Homer comes up and starts jiving them. And
well, this is the first time you see Rod, which is interesting to know, because you've seen Todd a few times, so it's already, until this point, it just sort of seems like they have one son.
Okay.
And then Rod's there, and it's just not mentioned. So I don't know when Rod becomes more relevant, but it's just sort of, strange that until this point, you would assume they had one child.
Oh, but it's very clear from this that they have two. And they're standing in a circle, openly praying, so this again shows us the idea that they're a very religious family, and they don't mind, showing their religiosity together in a circle at the mini golf place. And it turns out they're praying that no one gets hurt. They're not praying to win, as Homer assumes. Yeah,
I'm going to say that was her idea.
Really? What makes you think that?
Yeah, I think Ned would still have been relatively into his argument or bet at this point, and she would have said, no, we're going to pray that everybody's safe.
She does seem like the calm one in this scenario. Ned might have got whipped up into a frenzy by the thought of that competition, especially at the cost of losing, which we don't know yet. We're not told.
He will also go on to have a full psychotic breakdown later that reveals that he has anger issues to deal with.
But that's
so maybe. But we could imply that is why he is so uncharacteristically into this bet.
Maude is the voice of reason here then, and she's keeping the family together with these prayers, while Ned, the snarling beast as he refers to himself earlier in the episode, as they start arguing, Homer and Ned, we cut back to see Maude, who kind of has a shocked look on her face. It's the first time we've seen Maude anything other than calm, so it looks like this is her line, this is her trigger word. These two guys are going at it in public, and she's a little bit shocked. Marge, by contrast, almost has a grin on her face, but that could be the uncomfortable grin that she sometimes wears when Homer is embarrassing her.
I think, again, it comes back to this whole mirror idea, because Marge is always played to be a little bit more of a, like in this episode actually, when Ned writes Homer a letter to apologise, and Bart, Lisa and Homer and Maggie all laugh while they're reading the letter. Marge is the only one who says that's a horrible thing to do, and then she leaves the room and laughs. So they're trying to say that Marge isn't particularly much better than Homer when it comes to it. So I think she's there's a part of her that wants to see Homer beat Flanders.
Yeah, and you see this, so as it goes through, and they go through the rising tension of this game, you keep going back to the crowd, and most people are concerned when one of their families is losing. But generally, Maude is just kind of like staring blankly into space in most of these clips.
Yeah, she also claps. She does clap for Bart. I noticed that.
Really?
They put that in.
Well, that's
that
not...
she clapped for Bart. But I didn't notice. I didn't look about Marge clapping for Todd. I didn't notice.
No. I mean, Marge is carrying Maggie, so it'd be hard anyway. But I don't know if she would, given the chance.
So yeah, that's another point for her just wanting. I think she wants peace.
So as it gets closer in the game and Ned shouts, "Mercy is for the weak," and we see Ned's rage starting to come out, Maude seems to be a little bit angered. Maybe her mouth is a little bit downturned, but generally she's keeping her poker face. And with the occasional, maybe mild glimpse of emotion there.
I think the easiest answer is they obviously just... Yeah, she was there to be Ned's wife. So I think she was being reserved because, again, she's a peacekeeper. She doesn't want to make a scene.
True, but it also could be, as you suggested, just be lazy animators who felt like there's no reason for animating this character because she brings literally nothing to this scene.
They didn't animate her with the intention of a podcast coming 31 years later to discuss her movements.
I would say that the Simpsons thought process runs deep, and I don't know if we can really make that assumption. But what we can say is that as the game comes to almost a conclusion, Maude is standing, arms by her side, like static, almost frozen. Her fingers spread, her four fingers, but she gasps as the rest of the crowd does, as the ball almost hits Lincoln's legs. And
whose ball?
Bart's ball, I believe. She gasps in time with the rest of the crowd. And so she shows that emotion there. Finally, it comes out. A little bit of Maude's true feelings comes out. She does want Todd to win on some level. But then the two boys decide that the game needs to be a draw and they're not going to fight this silly battle anymore. And everyone turns and jibber-jabbers to each other. Maude does not. She stands stoic, as we said, stationary, just staring forward into space. Come on, Nathan, what could be going on here?
I think she's processing what's happened. She doesn't want to. I don't know. Maybe she's angry deep down. That would be the only explanation, because the way she's been being built up this whole time is that she would run over and embrace this idea of peace, but she doesn't. So maybe in that moment she realized everything she'd been working towards was a lie and peace wasn't something she really cared about.
Oh my goodness. Now, you've taken a lot from that, and I have to say I agree with you 100%. I think everything had suggested that Maude here was the peacemaker. She was the voice of reason. She stood there taking all of these bows and arrows of outrageous fortune that were just flying around her. And we thought as the game was decided in a peaceful draw, she would run over and embrace her son and say, "I'm so proud of you, Todd." But no, instead she stood just staring, 1,000-yard stare into space. Who knows what she was thinking about? It seems like, as you said, maybe her world had come crashing down around her feet. But to her credit, she pulls it back together quickly, because the next thing we see is Maude slightly concerned, a concerned look on her face, the most concerned she'd been when Ned goes to talk to Homer about what is the outcome of this peaceful situation. She seems now
worried,
concerned. Yes.
Yeah. She is. I would say that is right. She is concerned. I don't know. The peace things throw me off.
So often when revolutionary ideas like that come along, and you reframe your entire perception of how something and someone has been, often you feel that way. But take a second, Nick, because your opinion on this is valued and highly important.
Yeah.
What is she thinking when that look of concern finally comes over her face when Ned goes in to talk to Homer? And we think they're all going to shake hands, but Homer, of course, insists that nobody has won, and therefore they both have to lose and go through with the bet, which is to wear their wives' Sunday best and mow their lawn in it.
Yeah.
Maude seems concerned. Could it be that she's concerned that her dress is going to get ruined and really that she's that shallow?
Well, at this point, she doesn't know that's going to happen because nobody one. So
well, she's sharp, isn't she? Maybe she'd already worked. Maybe she's 3 steps ahead of both Ned and Homer. And she'd worked out that this is what was going to happen. But no, let's not give her too much credit.
I do like that, though.
She's some kind of mastermind. Have we seen any evidence of that so far?
No, but there is. I will send you this link. I think I put it in that Google Doc thing. But there's a full theory about how she's a sociopath, and her ultimate goal was to kill Ned.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely have to talk about that theory, although it's creepy, and I don't know if I really like it. Because so far, Maud hasn't given us any suggestions that she's anything other than a decent person who's simply concerned that her husband and the next door neighbor are going to continue their feud even after their sons have shown them the right way to go.
Yeah, so maybe she's just snapped back into her moments past, the peace, she'll work on that. It's not the end of the world for her. However, she's snapped back to the present, and peace is falling apart again, so her natural response would be, oh no, I have to do something about this, because she's already instinctively forgotten that she's just died inside.
Oh my goodness. The last time we see Maude is she stood on her driveway with her family, as are the Simpson family next door, watching. Oh no, they're all stood together, aren't they? All the wives and children are all stood together, watching Homer and Ned mow their respective lawns. Now, Ned is resplendent in Maude's Sunday best. It's a lime green outfit with a lilac hat and a kind of like small ruff around the neck, pearl necklace and earrings. And
I could see Maude wearing that, which is interesting.
Did we ever see her wearing that?
No, not to my knowledge. But yeah, it's an interesting. It doesn't look like if this episode had come maybe 3 years later when they'd established her slightly more. I don't think that's how that outfit would have been designed.
You think the outfit would have been a little bit more
conservative and less lime green?
It is a bit wacky, isn't it? It's a little bit out there. It's almost as if they were deliberately trying to make the outfit look ridiculous, and rather than making one that Maude would wear to church on a Sunday. And I don't know if I can really respect the Simpsons writers for pulling such a trick.
No, I don't think it's right at all. No, I think it's scummy.
I mean, that's a harsh thing to say, but probably fair given the fact that. Here's what I think. Probably after Ned had mown the lawn in that, Maude would have just thrown the outfit away, and she would have just gone and she would just gone and bought another one, a nicer one, and that probably accounts that maybe this more flamboyant outfit was from an earlier Maude, and maybe Ned had done her a favor by ruining it by getting grass stains all over it.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that so that's also not Marge's outfit for her. So yeah, I think it was a blatant attempt to make something look funny.
It's just a gag. Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just for laughs, cheap laughs.
Cheap laughs. Shame on you, Simpsons writers.
Yeah.
Who wrote this episode? Do we know?
No.
Doesn't matter, but shame on you. It's like the equivalent of just doing a funny voice or a silly dance. Shame on you, Simpsons writers. Now, so that's the end of that episode. So we got through Maude's first full appearance, and she popped up several times. Is there anything you want to add to that, or do you think we've analysed the heck out of it there?
No, I think we've covered all bases. I think the second thing I was going to talk about, we covered.
All right.
The most interesting thing that I learned was the wind chimes fact.
It is intriguing, and I really wish that this had been woven more into Maude's life. Although obviously, it is going to appear several times in our conjectures about her time spent.
The Simpsons Season 2 Episode 9, Itchy and Scratchy and Marge, written by John Swartzwelder, directed by Jim Reardon, aired December 20th, 1990.
We see a protest organised by Marge outside the TV studios.
Yes, I think it's the Itchy and Scratchy studios.
Bart has changed his sign to "Don't ban Itchy and Scratchy." And Marge is saying you've just enough people taking interest. And who turns up first on the scene? Just passing by? It's Maude Flanders, assuming Ned's just behind her, but who knows? And she says, "Hello, Marge," but not to Homer. She doesn't say hello to Homer. So Maude turns up first on the scene, and she points to the sign which says SCUH, and she says, "What does that mean?" And that doesn't even make sense. Those letters are not correct, because Marge then says, "Springfielders for Non-Violence, Understanding and Helping."
Yes, I think it is SNUH.
Okay, and it's a crusade against cartoon violence that is warping her children's minds. Maude stands there the whole time with a very calm look on her face and nods along and makes them like, very pleased to be hearing this by the sounds of it.
Yeah, Maude, I think she was just passing by. I don't think Ned's there. I think she was just passing by alone, saw her neighbours, saw something that she thought she could get behind and listened with open ears. No judgments, just listening. She also seems to believe Bat and Lisa's lies about where they are going to go, because she just smiles politely.
Yeah. Is she innocent? Is she thinking, oh, those kids are doing, that's great, enjoying their childhood? Or does she just not care?
Yeah, I think she knows and she doesn't care. I think she just, here's something interesting. Maybe Maude is using The Simpsons as a mirror into her life.
What?
So she's thinking, I'm glad my kids aren't like this.
I imagine that she thinks that a lot when she sees the Simpsons kids, even Lisa. Because Lisa is the best Simpson kid, but still way worse than Rob and Todd Flanders.
Yes, definitely. And we will see them all live together 3 seasons later.
So they go off to, here's the thing. This is what struck me. So Lisa goes off to watch a TV show at her friend Janie's house and doesn't want to tell her mum.
Oh, now that is interesting. So maybe Maude is smiling in a nostalgic way. I remember those days.
You think? Yeah, maybe she's thinking, well, Janice Hoopla. She's thinking that could be.
Yeah, I think that's the best thing we've figured out so far.
So the protests gather. More and more, the usual suspects pop up. Got the Lovejoys, and Maude's marching there with Ned. And she's got a sign that says, join SM. Ned has a sign that says, save the cartoon animals.
Nice. I think that I did make note that her sign seems to be the only positive reinforcement sign. The rest of them are very like death to itchy and scratchy, blah blah blah, or ban this. Whereas Maude's is join this group. Maude's is inclusive as opposed to exclusive.
I think so. And my favourite sign though was Skinner's mum's, whose sign said destroy the violent people.
Yes.
Now that's irony.
Maude's,
it's what we call irony in the business.
Yes. So Maude's sign is the nicest sign.
Yeah. So then Marge goes, how many people were hit on the head by mallets, and all these people have like bandages around their head, but you know who's not there? You know who I couldn't see in that scene once the crowd got big? I could not see Maude Flanders. I looked, she was there at the beginning, 10, 12 people there, but when there was about 40 or 50, I scanned several times. Maude was nowhere to be seen. Where's Maude?
I've also made this note, but at the very end of that scene, when you see the back of the crowd, you can see Maude at the front of the crowd.
Ah, okay.
So I think she is just still there. I think she's not, you can't see her when you see the front of the crowd, when Marge is talking to them.
She's not the kind of person who would leave a protest in the middle, is she?
No, she needs to see results.
She needs to see results. She's there thick and thin, right to the very end.
Because the cartoons she watched as a child were still not particularly violent.
They were done.
So she'd still, as much as she respects Lisa's candor for watching TV with her friends, she doesn't like what TV show it is.
Even though she doesn't know what it is, but she definitely doesn't like it.
Well, I'm assuming that she made the guess that they were going to go and watch Itchy and Scratchy.
She did. Now, this is all a satire on Tipper Gore, Al Gore's wife, who in the 80s was trying to get those parental advisory stickers stuck on things and all that kind of stuff.
I did not know that.
Pretty sure that's what it is. But, I'll do my research after we've done the episode. And, it's more fun to report on it next week. A week too late, as we like to say. So there's a knock on the door, and Helen Lovejoy and Maude. Now, this is one of the first times we really see Maude by herself doing something. And she says, with Helen Lovejoy, who are both interestingly voiced by the same character, by the same person, Maggie Ross, lead our protest against this abomination. And they show a picture of Michelangelo's David. Maude replies, it's a masterpiece. And Helen Lovejoy shouts, "It's filth," and Maude is glaring. Maude is glaring intently at Marge Simpson, who dares to call this filth a masterpiece.
Well, yeah, I have a lot to say about this scene, because this is Maude. Maude without Ned is a lot meaner to people than Maude when Ned is around. She's a lot more mob mentality, and sorry, I thought I heard a noise. So she's like, she says to Helen, I told you she was soft on full frontal nudity, which means that Maude has already, before giving Marge this chance to join, has been bad-mouthing Marge and saying she isn't going to do this. She isn't like us.
Clever.
She's scum.
She's scum. Harsh, but from the glare, those eyes, hopefully, listener, you can see them right now. Those eyes are like diamond lasers cutting into Marge Simpson's face.
I think it's worth noting that I did say just now that Maude without Ned is particularly mean, but it would be more accurate to say that Maude with Helen is meaner.
Partners in crime.
That when Helen is around, Maude treats people worse.
Interesting. So, and I thought that was funny where they say, and I don't know if this was an innuendo, I told you she was soft on full frontal nudity. I don't think that was a rude knob gag, but who knows?
No.
So they come on, girls, and they turn and leave with the crowd. We cut to the airport, and there's a generic Italian man, and Maude is holding a sign with David on it, but it's crossed out so you can't see his junk. And the sign, "No nudes is good nudes." And Helen shouts, "Get your big Italian butt out of here!" And Maude again, just glaring, just standing there, arms by her side, just sending out buckets of hate towards this Italian man and his mucky statue.
Yeah, I did notice this. I did notice that she looks particularly furious, which has led me to my train of thought of maybe this is how she gets all of those, this dead inside thing that we're keeping in the air.
Yes.
This is where she brings it back. This is how she feels alive.
Exercises those demons.
Yeah, and I think because, as we know, Ned has a rage problem, but maybe we're seeing that Maude also has a bit of a once started, her hatred will just seep out until it stops.
Oh my goodness, what could have caused such a thing?
Because she goes from Team Marge. She only joined on, like, she's gone from being Marge's supporter to usurping that role and then telling Marge that she is no longer supportive enough. So she's had quite a power trip there.
That's true.
And Ned is nowhere to be seen in this episode. No, that's incorrect. He is.
He only well, I don't know about the other clips that I haven't seen, but he doesn't turn up in the Maude clips very much.
No, he's there protesting, but she's the main one out of the two in this story, which is very early for this to be happening, I must say.
Just bringing her out on her own, just a few episodes in, but I guess they tried to gather all those kind of like moral guardians. Helen Lovejoy and Maude were the two biggest in that area at that point, I think.
The Simpsons Season 2 Episode 17, Old Money, written by Jay Kogan and Wallace Wolodarski, directed by David Silverman, aired March 28, 1991.
Grandpa is giving away $100,000 and Kent Brockman is doing a piece. There's a line outside the retirement home and there's a bunch of Springfield figures and Maude and Ned are in that line. Can you, just for fun, Nathan, can you tell me who else is in that line?
There's a lot. It's similar to what you said about the Hitler thing. They must have done this a lot early on without me realising, because I haven't watched the early ones for years. So I think a lot of this went over my head at the time. Because only when I watched it now, I saw Darth Vader, I saw the Joker.
Yeah.
Merc Quimby I saw,
yeah,
which was funny because he's the mayor. Ned and Maude are the most interesting people in the lot.
For me, the most interesting guy was the sushi guy. I don't know if it was the guy from the Fugu restaurant, which is that season what?
No, I think that's season 2, and I think, again, it must have just been a recent character model.
Maybe. But do you know who was there, who wasn't in the line, but that was stood in the garden, and as you have already cited as one of your favourite characters?
Disco Stew.
Not Disco Stew. He hasn't appeared in mine yet, but he is a musician, and he is dead, And you did say that you possibly your second favourite character after Maude.
Oh yeah, are you talking about Bleeding Gums Murphy?
I am talking about Bleeding Gums Murphy. Did you notice that he was in the retirement home?
No, I did not. That's quite interesting. He's still alive at this point, but he's my second favourite dead character. He isn't my second favourite Simpsons character.
Who's your second favourite Simpsons character?
Disgust You.
Really?
Well, it does. It changes from as a kid. It was Disco Stew, Frink, and Comic Book Guy were the three that I liked the most outside of Maude. No, I like Chalmers a lot. I'd put Chalmers up there, and Milhouse and Ralph I like a lot more.
All good choices.
No, so there's a big list.
Yeah.
And Luann Van Houten.
Luann Van Houten.
Yeah.
Nice. You don't want to throw in Milhouse's dad, so you get the whole family. What's his name? Claude? Klaus?
Kirk.
Kirk
is the funniest of the three, but no, I'd pick Milhouse and Luann over Kirk.
Yeah, I also thought there was a large female Spock in the line, and Apu at the front of the line. You know,
weird.
I thought such a man with a thriving business would want 100 grand, but who wouldn't is a good question. So Maude is stirring ahead intently, eyes on the prize, but Neddy is smiling into the camera, and I think that tells us a lot about the two of them, doesn't it, Nathan?
It does. Maude is very again, I think Maude spends a lot of time in her own thought.
Okay.
That's what we've learned this season, especially that Maude is a very reflective person. She often seems to be lost in her own thoughts. But why are they, this is a question I have for you. Why do you think that they are, why do you think they want this money? Why do you think that the Flanders would think it was okay to take $100,000 or whatever it is from an elderly man?
That's a good question. Maybe they think they can do good with it in the community. I would like to think they're not just going to go and spend it on a giant gorilla to go on the roof of their house or, a sports car.
The Simpsons Season 2 Episode 20, The War of the Simpsons, written by John Swartzwelder, directed by Mark Kirkland, aired May 2nd, 1991.
I'm calling this first clip 0 because you helpfully gave it to me about 3 minutes before we came on air. Now, in clip 0, the party's about to start and Maude and Ned arrive. The door is open. Maude pulls a pretty goofy face, but they're kind of smiling and happy. Maude's resplendent in a red dress, and Neddy's got his normal stuff on. They come in, there's greetings, and then Maude and what's Homer's wife called?
Marge.
Maude and Marge are having a chat while Homer and Ned go off.
Yes, we don't learn much other than as you've contested, she has a creepy looking smile on her face when she arrives at the door. Which
it's goofy. I didn't say creepy, I said goofy.
To follow on from last week, maybe she is continuing to pretend that her mind isn't shattering into a million fragmented pieces.
Sure, she's holding it together well. So then quickly, clip 1. Now, Maude's not actually in this, correct me if I'm wrong. She's not in this, but it's a scan of the Simpsons room, and we see Ned waving his arms around. And I'm assuming you've included this because you've assumed that Ned is complaining about Maude and some indiscretion she's done, and that's why this is in there, and Ned's waving his arms around. Is that right?
No, that's interesting. I like it, but no. The reason that was in there is because I found it interesting that Maude isn't there. Where is she?
Interesting. Negative space. We could do a whole series of episodes where Maude isn't there and wonder where she is and what she's doing at this time. Is Marge in the room?
I think. I don't know. I can't remember. I think the reason I pointed out it was because Maude was the only person that wasn't in the room, I think, which was like who had been seen in the prior party scene.
Would you like to take a stab at where Maude is?
Just somewhere plain, maybe the bathroom, or maybe she is getting a small sandwich or something to that extent.
Or preparing a small sandwich.
I think Marge has covered all bases food-wise.
I guess she has. She could be helping with the setup because these kind of parties, there's always last minute things to do. So she could be in the kitchen if Marge isn't there. And again, if we want to look back at the clip, watch us and tell us whether Marge was in the room. And if she's not, then that might explain that Marge and Maude are continuing their conversation, maybe while they're putting some little hot dogs on sticks, or, putting some water into the juice of the kids to water it down so that they don't get too hyper. Because imagine what Maude would do with her children's soft drink.
Yes.
So then we move on to the second clip, and this is now hotting up, right? So Maude is in her sexy red dress. She's wearing an uncharacteristically saucy red dress, which I'd like to get your tuppence on, your 2 cents on in a moment. And she's still wearing the pearl necklace, which I believe Marge also wears all the time. And I don't know whether that's relevant. And Homer's looking a little bit worse, for wear already. He's stumbling around a little bit. His eyes are going a bit wonky, and he goes to Maude. He goes, "Could you get me some peanuts, Maude?" And Maude, she looks, and with a smile, she looks at Homer and she says, "Yeah, of course." And then she goes to get the peanuts, and Homer says, "Not those." And Homer's drooling and he's slurring. Maude's taken aback a little bit. It looks like she's like, "Oh, what have I done wrong here?" And then Homer says in an incredibly creepy whisper, "The one at the bottom." And Maude smiles again innocently because she realizes she hadn't done anything wrong. She just, this is just a different desire that Homer had that she couldn't have predicted. So nobody's to blame here. So Maude goes in for the peanuts, and then we realize what Homer's real plan is. We get a close-up of Maude's boobs. I thought I was going to take a screenshot of that, but I thought it wasn't very classy. We want to respect Maude here, but the Simpsons, they zoom in on Maude's boobs. From Homer's point of view, Homer shudders as he takes a good old look, and he's drooling and he's dribbling. Maude doesn't seem to notice, but I tell you who does notice. His wife, Marge, who's very unhappy, stood next to him watching this scene unfold. And what do you make of that, Nathan?
That was great. That was a great description. Part of me hates a lot of things about this episode. Specifically, when I rewatched it the other day, Homer's, from start to finish, Homer is just a terrible, terrible man. Just from people complain about how poorly written Homer is now, and in one of the new episodes, there's an episode where he crashes the car drunk with Marge in the car, and he puts her in the driver's seat.
He's a bad man, isn't he?
Yeah, this episode doesn't feel much worse than that, but this isn't about Homer, but it kind of is. The red dress, I'm going to try and remember everything you said. The red dress, in comparison to the Sunday best dress last week, is jarringly different.
Chalk and cheese?
Yes. So I think this is just, she's making an effort. She wants to look nice. The necklace I've never noticed since on Maude.
If you look at Marge, is wearing a blue, not particularly saucy dress with the pearl necklace. Maude, by contrast, is wearing a devilish red sexy dress but the same pearl necklace. Maybe Homer is seeing something that he doesn't see in his wife.
Well, yes, but I'm looking at the screen now. Marge is wearing a turtleneck. An orange turtleneck necklace. Possibly one of the only times in the history of the show that she doesn't have a necklace on that you've managed to pinpoint.
Well, there you go. Because in this, I'm trying not to read too much into this, but maybe the necklace transferring to Maude's neck is symbolic of Homer transferring his desire from his wife to covet another man's wife. In this case, the wife of Ned Flanders, his next door neighbour, Maude Flanders.
Yes, I would agree to all of that stuff that you just said.
Anything you want to add before we move on to the next scene, which is also a humdinger?
Yes, I have plenty to say. I think she knew what he was doing, but she was politely, because the way that he says, can you get me some peanuts? She sort of says, okay. She's already quite nervous about the situation.
Well, she knows him, doesn't she? This is not their first encounter, I imagine. The Flanders have lived next door to the Simpsons for, we don't know how long, but a long time, right?
Yeah, but she seems kind of thrown off that he's talking to her in general. There's a kind of nervous energy.
A saucy nervous energy, or just the kind of energy of this man's a psychopath and really I want as little to do with him as possible?
The second.
And as we find out later, she's not just in this episode, but in every encounter she has with him, she's entirely right.
And she's almost, as it goes on over time, she's almost repulsed by him.
Well, that would also fit in with the anti-Marge thing, because if Marge loves him, then Maude would be repulsed by him. I think there's a lot of people who are repulsed by Homer with his behavior. If he lived next door to you, you wouldn't like him.
No, I'm jumping way ahead here, but there's an episode where he's a hippie, so he's just sitting naked in the front garden in a small swimming pool, and Maud's response is, "My eyes have been soiled." So
this is an ongoing trope that not only is Homer lusting after Maude, but Maude is disgusted by everything he says and does.
Yeah, I'm going from last week's "Your wife's butt is higher than my wife's butt." This is a continuation of that. Whatever's in Homer's subconscious is now coming forward.
Frighteningly conscious.
Drunkenly and humiliating. But yeah, let's move on to the next clip.
Well, let me just stop there before we do go any further. Does this continue, this Homer lusting, or is it just a couple of episodes and then it kind of drifts away? Or do we see this multiple times over the next until he has a hand in her death? Until do we see him lusting over her several more times?
It continues following her death.
Lusting beyond the grave.
Yeah, there's, again, jumping ahead, there's an episode where, I don't think this is in my list actually, but there's an episode where he, mid-prayer, asks God how she's doing and then makes like a growling noise after imagining the response.
Well, I would like that to be part of your list if you could make that true. Let's jump on to clip 3, which is kind of somewhere between a dream sequence and a nightmare where Homer is, it's the next day and Homer is imagining himself remembering being at some fancy dinner party where he's put a fly into an ice cube, and this is the height of whimsy. But then the party turns into a vision of the party the night before with the Lovejoys, the Hibberts, and Ned Flanders looking on as Homer now with a lampshade on his head, once again drooling over Maude. But this time Maude does notice and she's shocked and her eyes are wide and she gasps. And everybody comes in to look at Homer and to point at him. And then it snaps back to Marge kind of like berating him.
Yeah, it's framed as if everybody steps in front of them, but I don't really know if that's the way it was supposed to actually be. But Marge and Ned are definitely, supportive of Maude in this situation.
Everybody knows that he's an absolute rotter, and that. But of course, this is a dream sequence, so we don't actually know. Like in the real party, it seemed like he just passed out, and everybody just walked over him and left him there, passed out on the floor.
Yeah.
In terms of Maude's dream reaction, this is Maude's like full on. She's more animated than we've seen her before, but of course it's not real. It's just a dream sequence of I guess Homer. It's not clear who's having this dream.
I thought it was it's Homer's dream. It's Homer remembering it from his point of view. And originally, he's when he sort of remembers it as him being the height of whimsy, as you said, and then just slowly realizing that wasn't the case.
Okay, so he does come to that realization because, Homer's not a man of reflection, and he certainly doesn't seem to regret any of his actions at any point.
Well, yeah, that was my other point, that he just, the only concern he has is that he's upset Marge. At no point does he care about Maude's feelings.
But he doesn't seem to care that he's offended Maude in any way. There's no point in this episode
because he doesn't like the Flanders family, so it would be out of character for him to really care what she thought.
Good. So this takes us to clip 4, which is that Homer, it's church on Sunday morning, and Homer's trying to get into one of the pews, and he tries a few different people, but no one will let him in. And so he approaches Maude, who is looking lovely in her open-necked shirt and a pink tank top and vest combination that we know and love so well. And she just gasps and pulls away from him as Homer approaches. If she didn't know what he was doing yesterday, she already does not like this man.
Yeah, she also buttons her top button up as he walks past.
Really?
Yeah. So she's already like, they're clearly playing it for laughs, and this was a 1990s climate. I don't think the joke would land the same in 2020, but the joke is, look, she's terrified of him.
It's the being terrified of him, fair enough, but the fastening the top button suggests that she definitely knows what he was up to, which until now we didn't really know. And actually, nowhere else in the show are we sure that she knows what he was up to, but we can all let's assume that she does know, and she's just keeping it to herself.
I was under the impression she was told, like, she again maybe was trying to see the best in the situation, and it was Ned and Marge who said no.
He brought her down to earth and said that dirty man was spying up your lady part. Here's the two things in this scene that are not related to Maude but were funny. He tries to get in a pew where Hitler appears to be sitting, and even Hitler won't let him in.
I didn't notice that.
A bit of a cheap gag, but it's it's fair enough. And then the other one, as we walk in, Reverend Lovejoy seems to say something about Satan's boners, or more Satan's boners, and I wondered whether this was do you know what that is?
He's reading a list of something, I can't remember what it is, but it's a list of something like teenage, like Christian rock bands or something to that extent.
I would love to know that there was a local Springfield Christian rock band called Satan's Boners or More Satan's Boners, but I assume that's maybe the name of their album, but it's up there with Diablo Canyon for me. Satan's Boners is a statement I'm going to be taking with me from this show, even though sadly it is unrelated to Maude Flanders.
One unrelated thing in the last clip that I wanted to say that just made me laugh was and adds to Homer being a bad person is when Dr. Hibbert leaves, he says to Marge, if you want him to live the night, I'd suggest you roll him onto his stomach. And then leaves and then comes back and says, remember, I said if.
Yeah, that's a funny one.
I enjoyed that. Nobody likes him at this point.
Well, he's not made any friends though, has he? So you would hope for some regret, but anyway, we go to the outside of the church and we see Maude, who's standing outside the church, and she's talking to a woman who has like two little weird-looking twins with big white hats. Maude's looking very content, and she's having a good chat there.
Yeah, I think I don't think she's the type to be a martyr and dramatize her own. Like, I think if she's going to tell somebody a personal story, she's going to tell one or two people. She isn't going to tell Linda outside the church in front of the kids.
You don't think this is about Homer? You think this is just general Sunday morning chit-chat? It looks like that. It's contented faces. We're not rocking any boats.
Yeah, I'd say, yeah, she's just having a normal conversation.
But the thing is, for me, is as we find out later, Ned is inside signing them up for marriage counselling. Now, did she know this? Have they discussed this? Is she's just calmly talking outside while her husband is saying that their marriage is falling apart and needs counselling?
I going back to last week when we talked about whether or not she knew he was going to phone Reverend Lovejoy. I think this is just another thing. Like, I don't think he told her beforehand, but I think she was under the assumption, where's Ned? Oh, he'll be signing us up for the marriage counselling with Reverend Lovejoy.
So they talked about it.
I think she would know that it was just perhaps a reason to be close to Reverend Lovejoy for Ned, as he just enjoys the closeness to God. So I think it's a bit of we need to find a reason to go to this.
I did suspect maybe that Lovejoy had got them in to get the numbers up.
Yeah, something to that, like, they're not there because there's any kind of trouble, as we find out.
Well, we do find out there is some trouble. And yeah, I'm not going to belittle Ned's problem with Maude, because when we get to that, my friend, when we get to the meat of this episode, we're going to find out really how that poop has hit the fan in the Flanders household. But before that, we get to the retreat. They're out there in the woods, and Neddy looks over to Homer and Maude and shouts, hey, you trying to give your marriage a little spit shine? And then Maude's looking a little concerned at this point, but Ned's got his legs kind of like crossed towards Maude, which seems to say that maybe things are not quite that bad. Maybe they've talked it through, and this is just really, like we said, Lovejoy's asked them there to kind of keep people's spirits up. And then we zoom out a little bit and we see them both Flanders sat on the couch with their hands on their lap, attentive listening, good posture.
Yeah, I think if there's any fear in her eyes, it's that the Simpsons have just arrived. I don't think that comes from. They're not there to really get into their marriage. They're there to be supportive of other people's marriages, but preferably not the Simpson family.
Well, you say that now, Nathan, but last week you thought that she wasn't emotionally invested in that golf game, and then within minutes you'd suggested that maybe her entire persona was crumbling. So let's move on to the meat, what I'd like to call clip 7. So Reverend Lovejoy, feigning innocence, says, Ned and Maude, what brings you here? And Maude's looking very concerned at this point, but she does say, to her credit, she says, go on, Neddy, She wants him to share their dirty laundry in public. Ned begins in desperation, which turns into a quiet rage, as he says, "Sometimes Maude, God bless her." Maude's face now is something akin to sorrow. She underlines phrases in my Bible when she can't find hers.
Yeah, I think there's a definite look of shame on her face throughout. From when Ned says what he says, she is deeply ashamed. But again, I think this might have been the wake-up call she needed. I'm gonna scrap almost everything I've said for the last 5 minutes.
Good.
Ned
That's what I like. I like this mid-episode twist where there's a revelation. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just pointing the facts out to you, but it seems like we've just pulled back another mysterious layer of the Maude Flanders onion.
Yes. Oh, okay, so Ned, sensing there was something wrong with Maude following the golf tournament, has decided to sign up for the marriage counselling in a bid to get her to open up. And this, in turn, probably shocked her to the core and made her think, wow, am I really that? Has it really come this far? So that's now. There's also the Homer stuff, that wasn't great for her. So she's already still a bit worked up. But I think this whole episode has brought her back to the present, brought her back to Springfield and real life.
Well, nobody wants that, right?
No.
So here's the thing that I thought, though, maybe. Well, first of all, I had a question of, Maude's a pretty careful person. Why does she keep losing this Bible? Their house is tidy. Why? I have a theory.
It could have been, go for it.
Please, you go first.
My theory is that, again, perhaps this contradicts both of the previous ideas to an extent, but maybe it's a cry for attention. Maybe she wanted Ned to notice that she was dead inside.
Could be. It could be that this is she in this bubble that she lives. She can't reach out. She can't say, "Help me, Neddy." So she has to underline passages in the Bible. Now, I went a different route, and I thought maybe she wants to make Ned a better person. She knows that Ned is a rage monster underneath this all, and she's seen this. We haven't seen it yet in this show, but we know has encountered this many times already in the past. The rage of Flanders. And maybe she's underlining passages in his Bible just to nudge him towards the Lord.
I see. So you're proposing that she lives in some kind of fear of Ned losing it, and she just wants to keep him because she knows he isn't. She knows that she's safe and the kids are safe.
Yes.
But Ned could lose his mind, and I don't know.
He could go absolutely bonkers in a shopping mall, couldn't he?
Yeah, he could. He could push Lisa off her bike.
Oh, scabbed knees all around, and we definitely don't want to be seeing any of that kind of shenanigans in Springfield. But
no.
So I think not so much fear, but from that, but Maude sees that she wants to save his soul. She wants to push him closer towards the baby Jesus with truths, because as we know, lies make the baby Jesus cry. She wants truth to push him closer. But in this same exchange, Homer, unhelpfully, after Ned's had his Tant admits that he's here just purely because he looked down Maude's dress. Now, if Maude didn't know at this point, this has rocked her world further because Maude is absolutely mortified by this and her hands go to her eyes and she gasps. This is a roller coaster of an episode for Maude.
It's a strong start. This is the one redeeming moment in that he openly says, yeah, that's what I was doing. There's no seedy underhand to it anymore. He's just like, yeah, that was the goal. But I think the fact that she's so shocked is she doesn't, even though she is pushing for the truth, as you've just said, this might have been a little bit too much truth for her.
She can't handle the truth, as Jack Michelson might have said in that 90s movie.
Yes, and I think to hear it just so bluntly put, to hear herself spoke about in such a blunt way, just took her aback again for that moment, but again, contributed to the being alive. So
bringing her into the moment, so you think this pain that she experienced was probably good in the long run because it brought her back to a full appreciation of her existence?
Maybe, because I know for a fact one of the next episodes we're going to be looking at, not the next one, but one upcoming, is the Leftorium episode, and she couldn't be a better, more supportive person. So I think whatever issue she's dealing with in season 2 might have this might put her back on the path of good. I think the whole golf tournament might have been a blip in the grand scheme.
But I think one thing's for sure, Nathan, we're realizing that nobody has an easy life. So Maude, everybody thought she's just in the background, she's just a good wife. Just look at the emotional twists and turns that she has to deal with. Though, not all of us are as saucy looking as Maude, so maybe not all of us have to put up with this kind of stuff. But Marge starts banging on about Homer, and she goes on for ages about how bad he is. And we see, as we go around the room, we see that Reverend Lovejoy's dropping out, like he's a bit tired. Helen Lovejoy's yawning. Ned's kind of like trying to keep his eyes open. Maud's gone. She's asleep. Maude is literally asleep. She's the only one of the four that actually completely falls asleep and passes out. But she jumps up, like kind of wide awake, like a startled puppy. It's like something that had triggered her. But why? Why was only Maude sleeping? Why is she the only one? Because she was the center of this. She was the trigger in many ways, and yet she was able to detach herself so much that she simply just fell asleep. It was still light. Must have only been 20 minutes or so.
I get the impression that she knows that Homer is a bit of a loon. She already, like, everything she's hearing, she doesn't need to hear all the examples. She's already seen enough. And I also think from a TV show point of view, out of those four characters, she's it's sort of the funniest that she fell asleep out of those four, because she, especially out of her and Ned, like at this point, Ned's the one that you would go to for the comedy. So I think they were maybe just mixing it up a little bit.
Oh, so they were playing this for laughs, were they?
Once again, yeah, a cheap trick. But I think it was Maude. It's like, oh look, even Maude's asleep. I think either they were trying to show that Maude's weak, but we know Maude's not weak, so I don't think that's what they were showing. I think they were trying to show her absolute lack of interest and care in what goes on in that debauched house. But they did go to a party earlier, so I don't know. Maybe, who knows? Maybe she was very tired. Maybe she'd been tossing and turning herself over the last few nights over the burning soul of Homer Simpson and his dirty eyes. Who knows? Yeah, perhaps she's just tired of trying to be a good neighbour.
Oh, because it is tiring. And next to those guys, believe me, that would really try the patience of the best of us. Well, the last clip that you shared with me is the trust fall. And so each of the couples has to fall backwards into their partner. Maude, no questions asked, eyes closed, 100% trust in Neddy. I don't need to tell you that Homer had already left the room at that point, so Marge couldn't even do the trust fall, but was warned against it by Reverend Lovejoy anyway. But what do we make of this?
I think this is back on track. Any problems, whether our speculation was right or wrong for why they were there, it worked.
It worked. And as Reverend Lovejoy said, a marriage can't be saved in an hour. It takes a whole weekend.
Yes. So I think by the end of this episode, they're at a good place. Maude's in a good place. She feels safe with Ned Flanders.
Do you think she's learned her lesson about underlining the Bible and keeping hers safe, or do you think that she'll continue, but they'll just kind of have it as one of the little idiosyncrasies in their marriage that they just deal with?
I think it was, again, there was no mistake was made from her part. She was either crying out for attention or trying to help him be a better person.
All right. So she does she continue with the underlining, though? This is what I'd like to know.
No, I believe that she would respect his wishes.
So she simply takes that pain and she buries it deeper inside herself and stops calling for help, or she abandons his soul and says, "I can't help you, Neddy," but she'll probably find other ways to help him. I'd like to think she's trying to help, and although this life's not easy for anyone, Maude's dealing with it in her own way, and she feels that helping Ned is the best way to help herself.
Yeah, I think you were more correct that she was trying to do a good thing as opposed to just trying to desperately claw for attention. I think she was trying to teach Ned some lessons she felt he needed to learn. So I feel like she doesn't have a reason to apologise, but she wouldn't carry on knowing that he didn't want her to do it.
She'd respect him, and now they're back to a good relationship, which is nice to know. Well, there was a lot of stuff in that episode. So anything you'd like to add that we didn't analyse, or as my catchphrase is going to be, have we analysed the heck out of it?
Yes.
The Simpsons Season 2, Episode 22, Blood Feud, written by George Meyer. Directed by David Silverman, aired July 11, 1991.
This is a very short one. We just see Maude on an escalator with Rod and Todd, riding in front of Mr. Burns and Smithers, and they look back and they just hear Mr. Burns saying that they needs to buy a fabulous, crabulous, zip-zoop-zabulous present.
Yeah, and she looks pretty happy. She looks like she's listening to what he's saying.
Well, maybe she knows that he's talking about their next door neighbours, right?
Well, possibly. I also thought she'll know that she'll know of Mr. Burns and his characteristics because he's well known in the community. So maybe she's just happy to see this new side of him.
Oh, could be. And what I noticed is that we said that a homemade figure had a Springfield Mall bag. The homemade figure from episodes back had a Springfield Mall bag. And we thought that was random and we couldn't work out why it would be the case. And yet, in this very episode, she is in Springfield Mall carrying a bag. It's not the same colour as the one that our friend Pablo JC made a couple of episodes back.
No, the other thing, well, yeah, that was interesting to me to see. But I did work out that Springfield, how I said the bowling ball bag came with Helen Lovejoy.
Yeah.
The Springfield Mall bag also came with Helen Lovejoy.
So you just swapped out everything.
Yeah, I think so. But so I think we've hoped that his reasoning was deeper than it was. So that's what we're gonna stick with.
So one other thing is they all turned, Rod, Todd, and Maude turned at exactly the same time. They all turned in exact synchronicity, if you will, to look at Mr. Burns. And I thought that was a good example of the strength of that family all together. They're quite where Ned is at this point again. I don't know. Is he setting up the leftorium, do you think, or is it too early in the day?
I think it's too early because he also doesn't own it yet. So that's. But yeah, I did find it again. He isn't. We're seeing Maude again alone with Rod and Todd. She's becoming more prominent early on than I ever imagined she would.
Than any of us ever imagined.
No, to say that in her first season we have seen her twice alone is quite something.
Yeah. Here's one point that was funny, that apparently Mr. Burns was supposed to be in the marriage counseling thing in the last episode, but the mail order bride that he was with apparently looked too much like a prostitute, and so they cut that part from the entire episode. I don't know how true that is. I just read it when I was down some Maude rabbit hole.
I like that. I didn't know that. That's interesting to me.
And finally, a brief overview of Maude's Season 2 growth.
So the first time we saw her, this is her first season. We have 5 appearances. From the first time we saw her to now, she has already changed. We've already gone through the first time we saw her, she's dead inside, and then the marriage counselling retrieves her, her love for her husband. And also we now have this bitter side that we've also already seen towards Marge. That's all in the first season. I thought this was a little bit more spread out. I thought the Marge stuff came later. So we've already got the 3. Homer and Maude is a very big recurring talking point.
Yeah.
Marge and Maude is a big talking point, and we already have both of those things within the first 5 appearances. So
they've really set up her clash with Maude about who is the best moral guardian, or the fact that she feels that Maude sometimes is not doing enough to keep up the morals of the place. And likewise, she's had the clash with Homer, who just likes to ogle her and is not a nice man generally. And yeah, we have conjectured very much about her own torrent that's lying beneath the surface. But I think that protest episode is key. However, she has shown she's a very supportive wife, very supportive mother. And so we've seen some good and we've seen some bad in Maude. She's
outside of...
Sorry?
Go on, sorry.
She's certainly not the one-dimensional character that some of you out there think she might be.
Yes, and we've also, we've speculated a lot of stuff, but we have also learned a lot of concrete things like the wind chimes, the club sandwiches. We've seen her, well, again, this is the first season, so we've seen what she physically looks like. As before this, it was just known that Ned had a wife. So now we have a face and a personality to the name is what we can take away from this season's appearances, is that she's religious, loving, and a bit sassy.
Yes. Should we have not... She's certainly not been fleshed out fully, but we definitely got the skeleton. of a character. Not a ghost, but a skeleton.
Yeah.
So that concludes the clips pertaining to Maude Flanders' Season 2 Simpsons appearances. See you next time. Good night. And as Maude Flanders always says,